Welcome to the Money Mentors Podcast.
Thanks for checking out the Money Mentors Podcast. And remember, if you have retirement or investment questions for us, or if you want to learn more about what we discuss here on the show, feel free to reach out at any time. MatsonFinancial.com. That's Matson with 2 T's, financial.com. And our list this week here on Money Mentors comes to us from Forbes magazine. They give us 5 questions to ask yourself about your retirement finances. And I admit, a few of these here on this list, Gary and Laurel, are kind of tough ones and introspective here if you're getting ready to retire. But I thought it was a pretty comprehensive list here and some of the things you actually go over with people on those first visits. So let's start with question number 1 here. I know this is far from our minds right now because the market's doing so well. But number 1 is, what will you do when the stock market crashes? I mean, we do know we're kind of overdue for one of those right now.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, at some point in our life, I say in our lifetime, but still in your lifetime, it's still going to happen, right? We're going to see double-digit major returns. We didn't even think COVID was in the possibilities of what had happened, and it did. But I would say that we are not going to take the stance of, hold on, it'll come back, right? What we're going to talk about is, this is when Gary gets excited. It's the blue light special, and we're turning up the heat. So what have we done over this time frame now to harvest the gains and set aside, so now we can buy in when prices are low, right? Buy low, sell high. So this is when we really go to work.
Yeah, in the last couple of years, we've been very fortunate with our clients that we've pulled money out of the equation and put into positions that our clients has 3, 4, 5 years of income stacked up. And so that if the market does do that correction, we're right there to be able to buy in, not have to worry about income taking less or giving up trips or those type of things. We can have the retirement and know that when the market does crash, because it will, we know it will, we're going to be okay. And that's the key, is knowing that you've dealt with it in the past, you're going to deal with it in the future. So I don't care if you've been retired 20 years or you've been in the workforce for 20 years. It's gone down on you, 20, 30. I mean, look at 2020. The market went down almost 48% and came all the way back up within 12 months. Not a fun ride, but again, a great opportunity. So what would you have done differently in 2020? Well, when it was down 48, if you had the availability, would you have bought into it? Well, yes, you should. And then knowing when it came back up, would you harvest? That's what we do day in and day out, month in and month out, year in and year out for our clients.
And you're going to love it because we go to the whiteboard on this when we talk philosophy, so you can understand how our minds think and what do we look at with certain different performances that we see of rate of returns and what time period. So that's all talked about also in our first meeting.
Yeah. Kind of fun, too, to see how people react when they go through one of these market dips, too. I know it happened back during the pandemic years, but actually some really good stuff came out of that, too. If you want to see more specifics in person, we're going to tell you more in just minutes here about how you can get started with your money mentors at Matson Financial Services. But question number 2 to ask yourself here when it comes to your retirement finances, and this is the big unknown, Gary and Laurel, that is, how will you pay for your medical bills? It seems really unpredictable.
This is the one that I think has, for most people, the deepest, darkest recesses out there of how's this going to work. We know things are changing. If you look back 20 years, doctors used to come to the house. Now you're just trying to find a specialist to deal with whatever you're dealing with now. And sometimes you have to go to the emergency room to even get that done in a timely manner. I mean, it's very different 20 years. What's it going to be in the next 20 years?
Yeah.
Maybe it's being diagnosed at home. I mean, they're really pushing this thing, videos at home and having that information. But it's going to get expensive. It's not going to get cheaper. It's going to get more expensive.
Yeah, so true. But that's why, Laurel, you also brought in a Medicare expert there into the office to help with these questions. I mean, it's very specialized information. Good thing, too, about Matt there at the office, he knows a lot about the marketplace options for people who are retiring before 65, too.
Absolutely. We see that a lot, especially when we have spouses. One might have made it to 65. They're starting that Medicare journey, but the other one wants to retire like them and is younger. So how do we bridge that gap until they get to Medicare age? And I know Matt just actually worked with clients who are our clients on the wealth side of things because the gentleman is looking to retire next summer. So, right, we have over a year to plan for that retirement date. Wife has already retired, but husband says, yeah, I've been here for 30 years in a corporation. I've missed out on some things with the kids, and I do not want to miss out on their marriages and going into grandkid time frame.
Yeah.
So he's like, I want to be plugged in. So we said, great, you're actually going to be pre-Medicare age when you retire. So what do premiums look like? What's the kind of insurance that you want? And so we got to start that conversation with Matt so he can kind of come up with a plan to say, this is what things will probably look like. This is what the cost associated is. And that's where we plug in too to make sure, hey, you're talking about an income of X. I'm sure that income that they're telling us that they want is not counting for their medical bills, right? Because that's not the fun stuff they're thinking about. So that's why they're talking about the fun stuff, what they need for their everyday living. We're going to add the medical expenses on top of that. And then that's how we can go to work to make sure we're solving for this income need.
Yeah, we had a client come in last week and introduced himself to me, and he said, I've been listening to you and Laurel on the radio, and he says, I am so appreciative of this advisor that I'm working with. And he says, Gary, I could have asked for you, but he says, I didn't want you. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't sound very good where it's going with me. And what he relayed to me is, we could sit down and talk about 55 Chevys, we can talk about cars, we can talk about history and everything we've lived through, but he didn't want that person in the room with him. He wanted somebody younger that is going to look forward and carry him with him the rest of his life, but also have the knowledge of somebody older. And so when we do our planning with our advisors, he sees that fiduciary that has the knowledge, has the skills, has the breadth of time, knowing what markets have done in the past and how things have changed medically, but young enough that he can remain their client for the rest of his life. And that was important to him and his wife because he'd been retired for 5 years and she just retired this past week.
Oh, wow.
So having that combination of youth as well as knowledge was very important to him as a fiduciary.
And that addresses question number 3 on their list here. Do you have that financial advocate who can help if you're no longer able to manage your finances on your own? And then question number 4, kind of related here. If you're married or you have a partner, what will happen when one of you passes away? I mean, again, things we don't love to think about, but really important questions here.
Yeah, because what happens is when you have a loved one or you have a spouse out there and they pass, a few things change in your life besides the emotional of having that person around, which is a major. You're also having some major changes financially. You're going to lose a tax deduction. Secondly, you're going to lose spousal Social Security benefits. They're going to go away. And you're going to be there with the larger amount of the two, but part of that's going to go away, never to be recouped. So you have to be prepared for that lifestyle you're in to make sure you're taking the assets to fulfill that, or you got to downsize.
And what if there was a pension in there that they've been receiving for quite some time? Not all pensions just go straight to the surviving spouse.
Yes.
Some of them end with that life. And so that we have seen in the past too. So you want to make sure when we work with households together and spouses, we ask these different questions, especially because when we are meeting them, they're the healthiest likely that they're going to be and of the best sound mind. And so we want to know challenges are going to arise. You're either going to be alive and not well, or something could happen and you're not alive. That's just inevitable of what's going to happen. When those events happen, would you stay in a home? Or, what does that next step look like? Or who would you have making sure if you have a trust, who's going to be the executor of it if neither of you can make those decisions? So these are just things that maybe you have thought of before, or maybe you're like, whoa, I haven't, and I've got homework to do. I don't want you to think I've got too much to do, so I can't call Mattson. We're here to help you start getting this list together. We're here to hold your hand alongside to make sure you're doing the right things, you're asking the right questions, and getting you in tune with your Medicare licensed agent or your estate planning attorney or even a CPA. We're here to make sure everybody's at the table working for you and communicating on your behalf so things aren't missed and no balls are dropped.
Yeah, and you start throwing some other added complexes into it, like, a blended family.
Yes.
So you have a spousal from a previous situation and children, and now you have a new spouse and all that things to go with that. And how does that work with Social Security, pensions? All of that comes under the preview that you need to plan that out.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Fee-based financial planning and investment services are offered by Matson Financial Services, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance products and services offered through Lakeview Financial Group, LLC, Matson Financial Services, LLC, and Lakeview Financial Group are affiliated. To find out if Matson Financial Services is licensed in your state, please call 800-536-8907.